Today's video was brought to you by StoryboardThat.com. Please visit TeacherCast.net/StoryboardThat for a limited time offer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TEACHERCAST App Spotlight. You are listening to the podcast that brings you the best in educational technology right from the app developers themselves. I am thrilled today that you have decided to make TEACHERCAST your home for your professional development. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and if this is the first time you're listening to the show, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great show for you. You can, of course, contact us and participate in our show each and every week by leaving us a voicemail and suggesting a topic at teachercast.net/voicemail, emailing us at feedback@teachercast.net, following us on Twitter at TeacherCast, or subscribing to our many audio and video channels over at teachercast.net/iTunes and teachercast.net/YouTube. Today we're going to be talking to Classkick, an amazing company that's doing some great things with teacher and student iPads. You see, they've come up with a solution for a teacher to create an amazing lesson and have the students not only take that lesson and use it as an assessment, but actually help out each other and do a crowd-sourced lesson. It's a really, really great topic, and here with my guests we have Mr. Peter Doe and Andrew Rowland. Andrew, Peter, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thanks a lot, Jeff. We're really excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Classkick.
So, I built Classkick because when I was a high school math teacher myself, every day my students were not getting the individualized help that they needed, no matter how hard I worked. I always knew that there were students who had questions. I couldn't be in 30 places at once, and especially for students who were shy about raising their hand and broadcasting that they needed help. I knew that a lot more students could use feedback and help, and that's why I built Classkick, to remove all of the barriers between me, my students, and the help they needed to be successful.
And now you mentioned the word feedback. Why is it important that we get this feedback from our students?
So I think a lot of teachers know that giving feedback to their students is really important, but it turns out that the research shows it's actually the #1 driver of learning in the school day. It outperforms every other variable. For instance, reducing class size, or having mentors in the classroom, or assigning homework. All these things don't have as big of an impact on student learning as giving good student feedback.
Yeah, and I think the shocking thing too, Jeff, is studies show that up to 52% of students self-report that they don't get enough feedback. So Andrew mentioned that it's the most important factor in learning in the day, and more than half of our kids aren't getting that. So obviously it's a problem that we need to solve.
And Peter, how are you guys at Classkick solving this problem?
Yeah, so like Andrew mentioned, it's our job, or it's Classkick's job more specifically, to remove any barriers that stand between the teacher and the student. So in a normal classroom, you have one teacher, 30 students, and that teacher can't be in 30 places at once. So we feel that it's our job to help that teacher have eyes on every student, no matter where they are in the classroom.
And on top of that, not only be able to assess and see how their kids are doing, but even provide feedback faster on an individualized level. I think that even on my best day as a teacher, I could only give a handful of students direct individualized feedback on their work. But with Classkick, you can do this, at 10x the number for individual kids. Or you can batch feedback to a specific group of kids, because oftentimes you find yourself answering a bunch of raised hands, but every one of those students has the exact same question, and you didn't know that until you answered. You went and helped all 10 of them. So on Classkick, you can batch a specific feedback that is relevant to that day's assignment, and then the 6 kids who are stuck on the same thing, you can just fire it off to them really quick.
So let's talk a little bit about where we can find Classkick. Where do we find you guys online?
So at getclasskick.com, you can see our landing page and our 1 minute and 30-second video that demos the app all right there for you. And then we're finding that teachers are able to then go to the App Store and get Classkick and start using it within minutes. One of the things teachers say to us most is they like how easy it is to get their stuff onto Classkick and get it out to their students even faster than going to the Xerox machine.
The Xerox machine, absolutely. One of those things that teachers love to do. Talk to us a little bit about some of the feedback that you guys are getting. I mean, you said right now you guys are in 48 states, 42 countries. Obviously, teachers around the world here love the great work, but really, what are the teachers and students telling you guys about this product and how it's helping them?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of my day. I'm the lucky guy in the organization. I get to talk to teachers pretty much every waking moment I have, and so
he means that genuinely. I'm jealous that Peter gets to talk to educators all day, and I'm more on the development side.
Yeah, so I've stolen that role in the organization, but we're getting lots of great feedback, Jeff. Like you said, we're almost in every state in the country and in 42 countries around the world. And those sort of statistics are wonderful for us to see, but at the end of the day, it's all about what the students are doing and what the teachers are able to do with the platform and work with students. And we're getting tremendous feedback. We're seeing up to 3x the amount of feedback with a Classkick classroom versus a traditional classroom. Teachers are telling us they're spending 50% less time grading because it's so much easier in the app. And I actually just heard this anecdote from a teacher yesterday who called me on my phone randomly, and she said one of her students, because in the app students are able to help each other, and she said one of her students on the first day they were using the app helped 5 of his peers, and in the past he had never raised his hand and never volunteered help for any of his students before. So it's actually we're hearing that it's actually changing behavior, not only from the teachers giving feedback, from also students helping their peers.
Now, you had just used the term Classkick Classroom. What is a Classkick Classroom? What does a teacher need to have to implement this?
That's a great question. So a lot of teachers think that they need a one-to-one iPad classroom to use Classkick, and of course that's probably the best use scenario is when every student has an iPad, but we've also heard from a lot of teachers that only have a handful of iPads that they've been successfully implementing that with station work, with group work. So it's not necessary to have an iPad in every student's hand. If you have an iPad cart, that's another great application, or just like a handful of iPads for a number of students works fine as well.
Now, do the students' iPads need to be connected to each other, or if you have a classroom where everybody has their own personal tablet, iPad, can they then bring that together with Classkick, or does it have to be a classroom set?
Yep. For right now, all you need is iPads and a Wi-Fi connection. It doesn't matter if they're all from the same classroom set or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing I would point out, in addition to what Peter was saying, is that what you don't need to pay for the app because it's free. And so you and your students can just grab it off of the App Store whenever you want.
Would you guys be able to give us a little demo?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. Great. So this is Classkick. On the left-hand side is what would be a student's iPad, and on the right-hand side is the teacher's. So as a student, I'm just going to open up the app and enter in a 6-digit class code that my teacher gives me. So maybe the teacher gets in that day and writes that class code up on the board. So I enter that 6-digit class code, put in my name, and I hit go. As the teacher on the right-hand side, I'm going to fire up the app, and instead of putting in a class code, I'm actually looking at all of my students' work. So what the student does is when they log into their assignment, all they have to do is start working. So to work as students, you can enter in content using any color pen you want. So here I'm going to pick an orange pen and continue labeling the oceans. The other way that students can enter content is by entering a text box. So in the bottom left-hand corner, if you click the text tool, you can drag that to anywhere you want on the screen and then edit that. So here I'm going to say Indian Ocean. Drag that to where you want. And as a student, you can also raise a hand. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can tap that hand icon and you can ask for you can raise 2 types of hands. One is please help, which is yellow, and then please check my work in green. And students can also choose to keep their raised hands private from the rest of the class by checking the box that says I want help for my teacher only. So here I'm going to say raise a yellow hand, and the student doesn't have to wait for the teacher to actually give them feedback to move on. They can continue working at their own pace. So here I'm going to, at the bottom of the screen, flip to the next problem and start working on this question. So here I'm going to say work on this math problem. And as a teacher, on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that all of that work updates automatically. So as a teacher, I can see my entire class here. Every student has a row, and I can scroll down and see my entire class and all of the problems in this assignment and all of their work updating as they do it. And so as a teacher, what I can do is I can see that, Peter here has raised a yellow hand on question 1, so I can tap into question 1 and see Peter's work immediately. So here I can say, oh, okay, he's missed a notion, so I can circle that. I can leave some quick feedback, say, keep going, you're missing one, right? And leave feedback on any student's page. The nice thing, as you can see, switching back to the student view, is that Peter's moved on from question 1. He's working on question 2, but whenever a student gets feedback, you can see that there's a notification in the upper left-hand corner. So the student sees whenever they get feedback on another question. So students can tap that notification page and see that, yes, I've received feedback on number 1. So if you tap there, students are brought back to the page where they've received feedback. They can see the feedback somebody's left for them, and if that feedback's in the way, they can actually toggle that on and off using the comment box in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you toggle that on and off, whoever left you feedback, that goes away. So you can continue to work here and say this is the Pacific Ocean. And of course, you can see as a student who is helping you. So here the teacher is currently on the screen, and you can see that the teacher is helping because the app tells you that. The last thing the student can do is actually help each other. So next to that notification button is a hand inbox. So if you tap that upper left-hand icon, it actually tells the student that a number of his peers in the class have raised their hand and that they need help. And this is a feature that the teacher can actually control. So here you can see a list of peers that need help, that have raised their hand, and they're anonymized. So instead of telling students who needs help, we've anonymized it in our system, and we've given them sort of clever names like Baffled Bear and Confounded Cat. And so from here, what the student can do is just tap into one of those boxes, and this brings the student into helper mode. So essentially here, the student can leave feedback to their peers, much like the teacher leaves feedback. So here is, a student, maybe this student knows that there's 3 oceans missing, so they label these 3 missing locations, and then when they're done being the helper, they just hit the back button and continue working at their own pace on other problems. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Absolutely. It's a really neat idea that you can not only help out a student, but students can help out other students. That's a really, really neat feature that you don't find in many of these apps.
Yeah. It's one thing. We didn't want the teacher to be the only source of feedback or help in the classroom. We wanted to break down the barriers not between just the students and the teachers, but between students and each other. And that was something that was very important to us, and very strong feedback that we heard from all of our teacher users was that, I want my students to be able to collaborate more as well. I don't want to be the only source of help in the class.
I mean, the whole idea here of crowdsourcing the learning experience and crowdsourcing the teaching experience, that's got to be pretty powerful in a classroom.
Yeah, teachers are really liking it, but another reason I think that this is really important is because, when we set out to build Classkick, we wanted to not ask teachers to learn anything new to their practice. Of course, the app is new, but in their daily practice, they have a set of routines and procedures they use. And, in this case, one of them is 3 before me. Teachers have their kids ask other students questions before they come to the teacher. And so this is just one example of where we try to take things that already happen in the classroom every day, like doing assignments, getting feedback from the teacher or from each other, and just build it right into Classkick so that we're using existing teacher practices instead of throwing a completely new idea at the teacher.
The last thing I'll mention before I show you how to actually enter content, Jeff, is a nice feature of Classkick is that as a teacher, I can tell when my students are working in the app. So you'll notice that Peter's row on top, because I'm logged in on the left-hand side, his row is colored white because he's currently in the app. Everybody else is sort of colored gray. But if Peter decides, you know, he wants to be off task and he wants to go play a game and he exits out of the app, on the left-hand side, as a teacher, I see that his row goes gray, right? So that's just, you know, a signal to the teacher that, hey, Peter's not working in the app when maybe he should be. And as Peter opens up the app again, maybe because you told him he needs to get back on task, his row goes white. So there's a way for teachers to sort of keep track of what their students are doing, whether they're in the app or not as well.
Let me ask you a quick question about that. Is the information that the students are manipulating and creating, is that stored on your servers or is that stored on the iPad? And I'm asking this because what happens tomorrow if on a class set, Peter has another iPad that he's using? Can he still log in and get back to whatever question he was at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the data is stored on our servers, so Peter can literally log into this assignment from any iPad in the world with an internet connection and have access to the same assignment and any work that he's worked on previously.
That's pretty important right there. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I mean that's the major sort of features of.
Oh, Peter, can we switch between rosters really quick?
Oh yeah, sure. So as a teacher, I can create multiple rosters for any one assignment. So let's say I'm a high school teacher teaching geometry, but I have 4 periods of that same class. Well, I might want to assign the same assignment 4 times. So what I can do is create a different roster, and at the top of the screen, I can actually toggle back and forth between my different rosters pretty easily. So here might be my period 2 class, and back I'm here on my period 1 class. So I can look at multiple groups of students very easily from one interface. So the teacher dashboard's pretty simple. On the left-hand side is just a long list of all of the assignments that I've ever created in Classkick, and we store, as long as the teacher doesn't delete an assignment, we store all of the student work, all of the feedback, basically forever. So there's really never a time where you have to delete an assignment unless it's something that the teacher doesn't want to keep. To add a new assignment, we'll start from the beginning. I'm going to click the Add button. What that allows me to do is to name an assignment. So I'm going to call this TEACHERCAST. And here down at the bottom is where you can create rosters. So like I mentioned, depending on how many groups of students you're working with, you might want to create a roster for every period. But what I'll do here is I'll click that plus button, I'll create a new roster, and I can name that roster anything I like, and then choose a color that I want to associate with it. Let's go red today, and as you can see, that roster will get a unique 6-digit class code that students will be able to log into this assignment with. So here I'm going to say done, and then you can always scroll and see any of your rosters here. You can always delete a roster by just Xing it out from any assignment that you want, and the nice thing about the way our rosters work is teachers don't have to pre-populate those rosters with student information. As students log in using that class code, they'll get automatically added to the roster. So for example, I can click on class roster A, and it's empty right now because nobody's logged in, but if I click on a different roster, say one that I've used before, it'll have all the names of the students that have already logged into that roster.
So, Peter, how simple is it for students to log in and get into that class roster?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way we've set it up is the teacher doesn't need to actually set up or pre-populate anything. All the teacher needs to do is provide students with a 6-digit class code, and as the students log in to using that class code, they get automatically populated into the roster.
What information do the students have to give you? Do they have to give a name and email, or what is actually asked of a student?
Yeah, all that's asked of a student is a 6-digit class code and their name. There's no student login. So down at the bottom below the rosters is where you actually get to edit your assignment and add content. So here I'm just going to add a few blank questions. So I'm going to say add 5 questions to this assignment. And to edit a question, I just tap into it, which brings me to the question edit screen. So much like students, teachers can write with a pen, so they can pick from different colors of pens and draw on the whiteboard. They can erase as well, so they can erase pen strokes. So the other way you can enter content in Classkick is by adding a text box. So you can type in a text box and say, this is a TEACHERCAST demo. You can also bring in pictures from your camera roll. So any imagery, any content that a teacher can get to their camera roll, old worksheets, snapshots from the internet, you can also bring into Classkick. So here I'm going to enter my camera roll. I'm going to pick an old worksheet that I want to bring in. What this does is allow you to crop multiple areas of the screen. So here I'm going to bring in these two triangles. And then with two fingers, I can drag these around the screen. I can use two fingers to pinch and zoom, and I can also trash any images that I don't want. The other way you can bring in content is by audio recording. So by tapping on the record button, I get a record dialog box that allows me to record audio. So here I'll say, find angle K and show your work. And now that audio is embedded into the assignment, and I can drag that anywhere I want on the screen as well. And then the last way to bring in content is by linking material. So by opening a link box, I can label this triangles and link anything I want, a website, a YouTube video. Here I think I have a YouTube video. So I'm going to link that YouTube video. And now, when I'm done, a student will be able to play that video in the app. So I'm going to drag this somewhere else, and here's my question. So to edit the next question, I can just flip to the next screen and do whatever it is I need to do there. Back in the dashboard, what teachers can do is actually duplicate or delete questions. So if you press and hold, you can duplicate a question as many times as you like, or you can delete it, and you can shuffle questions around. So let's say I wanted to move a question from the back to the front. I just pull it, and it reshuffles everything around that assignment. One great feature about Classkick is the ability to leave really quick feedback. So as a teacher, if I open my quick feedback menu, I have all of this customized feedback that I can actually give point values to. So it's very easy to scroll through my entire class and say just leave feedback wherever I want as appropriate in a matter of seconds. So something that used to take minutes or maybe hours, I can do just with a swipe of a finger.
Andrew, it certainly seems like Classkick is the perfect app for any teacher that's teaching in an iPad environment. Again, it doesn't matter if it's elementary, middle, or high school. There's something for every teacher with Classkick. Where do you see the future of the app?
Thanks a lot, Jeff. We really appreciate those sorts of comments. But the future of the app is really determined by our users, our teachers, and our students. Teachers are asking for faster loading times for their students' work, and that's something we're working on right now. They're also asking to be able to share assignments to each other, and a lot of other cool ideas that are coming in. And there's really only two things that we care about for the future of this app. One of them is increasing student learning, and the second one is teacher feedback. Whatever teachers think can help them be more effective practitioners, that's what we want to hear about, and that's what we want to build in Classkick.
Nice. Where can we find more information about the great work that you're doing over at Classkick?
So probably the fastest way to be in touch is to catch us on Twitter with the handle @GetClassKick on Twitter. And we love hearing from teachers, so reaching out to us on Twitter or simply emailing hi@getclasskick.com or leaving us feedback within the app you'll hear from us right away.
Andrew and Peter, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and join us here on TEACHERCAST. Please come back on anytime.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, my friends, that wraps up another episode of the TEACHERCAST App Spotlight. I want to thank again my friends from Classkick for sharing their great app with us today. There's, of course, many ways that you can connect with us here at TEACHERCAST. You can leave us a voicemail at teachercast.net/voicemail. Email us at feedback@teachercast.net. Find us on Twitter @TEACHERCAST, or subscribe to our audio and video channels over at teachercast.net/YouTube and teachercast.net/iTunes. Thank you for allowing TEACHERCAST to be a part of your professional development network, and I hope you take a moment to share TEACHERCAST with your PLN. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Please join me each Sunday night on TEACHERCAST.tv for the Tech Educator Podcast, live, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Until next time, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
Welcome to Ms. K's class. The teacher is happy, and her students feel successful. But it wasn't always like this. Ms. K used to struggle with paper assignments, print, copy, pass out, collect, grade, and hand back. In class, she could only help one person at a time, and this meant that she didn't know how the rest of her students were doing, especially the ones too shy to raise hands. Ms. K couldn't stand to leave students hanging, so she started using Classkick to give them instant feedback. Now she can prep any kind of assignment all without paper, using her own worksheets, new web content, or embedded audio and video. When it's time to work, Ms. K sees every student, and each of them gets to go at their own pace. When needed, students can raise their hand privately. Ms. K jumps straight into this question to give feedback. Students see this help instantly and keep working. Even better, teachers can allow students to help each other. Using Classkick, students get feedback like never before, from their teacher, from each other, both in class or at home. Get it for free at getclasskick.com.